Good morning, guys. Welcome back. I think we've just woken Mabel up there. Thank you, babes. I'm gonna say hello to everyone. Good morning, guys, and welcome back. Today I'm going to sit down with you all and talk about barking. Somebody messaged me the other day on Mabel's Instagram and asked me if Dachshunds were a barky breed, and I replied yes, but you can train them not to be. I actually remember when Mabel was a puppy and we were living in Manchester in the city centre. We were in this apartment building which had a shared courtyard. There was this other sausage dog there who was the most vocal sausage dog I've ever come across. And I remember talking to her owner and I was like, I said, it's really strange. I said, Mabel's never barked. Like, I've literally not heard a bark come out of her mouth at all. I think Mabel's about 4 months old at this point. And she was like, you just wait. She said, I literally thought exactly the same about her. And then when she got to about 8-9 months, she found her voice and she was very vocal, and now like I just can't get her to stop barking. And I was like, oh great, thought I'd like really gotten really lucky there. Anyway, as Mabel got older, it got to like 7 months and I thought, surely not, like she just doesn't seem like the type of dog to bark at anything or anyone. Like I've literally, like, all she used to do was just like whine or cry, like there was just no barking at all. And I really thought I'd hit the jackpot here. I was like, right, I've gotten really lucky. I've got a dog that doesn't bark that loud. And then, yeah, it got to 8-9 months, like the lady said, and Mabel found her voice. I don't really know what actually set the barking off, but when we moved into a house was when Mabel just turned 9 months old. And this was literally the day that we moved into our house. She came into season the first day. I remember that was the first day she came into season. Well, the first day she started bleeding. Obviously we just moved into a new house and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like not great timing, but obviously like it was fine and like it wasn't a problem at all. But yeah, from being in an apartment to a house, like you've not really got anyone walking past your apartment building windows on the 29th floor. You've not really got anyone knocking on the door, like no one really does that in an apartment building. Like especially for like parcels and stuff, we would literally just like go downstairs to like the reception and like pick them up there. So when we move into a house, obviously we've got these big windows in the living room with like dogs, people walking past. You've got the postman knocking on the door, and boy, let me tell you, that was when Mabel really started to bark. Now, I don't know whether this was like a combination between obviously her coming into season, because obviously when they come into season they're quite anxious, and one of the signs and symptoms is that they'll become really anxious and that they'll bark. So yeah, I don't know whether it was like a combination of that, but maybe that is just when they some start barking, because obviously the hormones are changing and like they're really anxious, but it also could be from like environmental changes that obviously we moved from an apartment into a house. Anyway, she started barking then. So eventually it got to a point where anyone who walked past the house, which was quite often, she'd bark. Anytime the postman knocked on the door, she would like howl like a wolf. Like honestly, I've never heard anything so loud come out of such a small dog. So anyway, I remember posting a little Instagram story on Mabel's Instagram and basically explained the situation to everyone, and I was like, right guys, has anyone had this issue before? Because she is howling like a wolf at any sort of noise. Even like, say if like my family were coming around, like my brothers would walk into the house and she would bark and bark and bark and bark at them, and I'd be like, right, this really needs to stop. So I asked a few people on Instagram, did a bit of research, and yeah, I've been basically implementing these things, and she is so good now. So good, honestly. Someone knocked on the door the other day, the postman. I answered it. She was stood by my foot, didn't bark at all. She just like went out and did like a little sniff, and I was literally like, oh my god, it's working. So I'm going to tell you my top tips on how I've achieved this. First, you've got to find the root of the barking. So obviously they're not barking just to be annoying and loud. They are literally barking because they are anxious. They think that they're in danger, they think that you're in danger, so they are doing it to protect you and obviously themselves. So you basically just need to reassure them that everything is okay. Like once they see that you're not in danger and they're not in danger and you're telling them that everything's fine, like you've just got to calm them down. So they're like, the worst thing that you could do in that instance is raise your voice and shout at them, because it's only going to make them more anxious. So you've literally just got to, like, when they're barking and going mad, you've got to really like just calm them down, go over to them, tell them everything's okay. This should settle them. Now, when they do stop barking and they are quiet in an instance like that, you need to reward this behaviour, so give them treats. What I would do when someone would come into the house is I would take Mabel into another room, calm her down, say it's okay, everything's fine. And then when she was quiet, I would give her a load of treats. Also, what I started doing after that, so you kind of got to like do it in steps. So once we'd like mastered that and she understood that when she was quiet, she would get a treat, I would then get the people who would come into the house. So say if someone was coming into the house, like a family member, a friend or anything, I would get them to go down on Mabel's level, give them a treat, just like talk to her really calmly. I'd be sat next to her telling her that everything's okay. And it's just repeating this over and over again until they finally get it into the head. The postman, so what I did for that was, so obviously she doesn't know who's knocking on the door and she just needs to get familiar with people knocking on the door. What you want to do for that is, say if you've got another person in the house, you want them to be inside and the other person needs to go outside and knock on the door. Obviously you answer the door inside with her, and obviously she'll see that it's you or your partner or whoever else is in the house. Then she'll associate that with, oh, I know them, they're familiar, it's fine, everything's okay. So you can practice doing this a few times. I know it's a bit of a pain going outside and ringing the doorbell and then your neighbours are probably going to be looking at you like, what are you doing? But honestly, it does work and it does help, so definitely recommend doing that. Also with anything, obviously, it just takes lots and lots of practice and repetition. The more and more people knock on the door, the more and more people come into the house and you kind of do these steps, the more that they're going to learn and they're going to understand that everything's okay. I'd say it probably has taken about 4 months for me to get Mabel to where she is now. Don't get me wrong, she's not absolutely perfect. Like there will be times where someone will knock on the door and she'll just randomly have a little howl. But literally, like recently we've had builders coming into our house. A door, something happened to the door. May have opened it when it was really windy and the whole door snapped off. Not the whole door, but the latch and the handle. Anyway, so someone was coming in to repair the door and at first Mabel barked and was a bit unsure, and then normally, if that was a few months ago, she would have barked and barked and barked the whole time that he was there. He was literally only here for like 20-30 minutes fixing the door, but yeah, she barked for like a minute, maybe a couple of minutes, and then I got him to give her a treat, and then like she slowly went over to him, had like a little sniff, and then she was just stood by him sniffing him for ages. So obviously that is a massive step to where she was a few months ago. So yeah, it basically just takes a lot of practice and patience. You've just got to be patient with them. Worst possible thing you can do is raise your voice, shout at them and just make them more anxious because they're only going to bark more and just become more reactive. But yeah, it's taken me a long time. I mean, to be fair, most of the time now she is fine and she won't bark at the door, and like, say if I'm answering the door to like collect a parcel, like I can open it, and normally I would have to put her in a separate room, but now I can literally open the door and I'll have her by my foot and she's absolutely fine. She's just come to join me on my lap, haven't you? Also, a tired dog is a less reactive dog. So if you know what time the postman, for example, is going to knock on the door or have an estimated time, then what you want to do is either make sure you've taken them on a big walk, or if you've got a snuffle mat, then you can use this. So a snuffle mat is basically like a mat where you hide loads of treats inside it, and it like stimulates the brain and obviously makes them quite tired after a while. So if you do this, they are less likely to be as reactive when someone knocks on the door, and therefore when they are obviously less reactive and not barking, you can reward them with treats. That really worked for Mabel. I would literally just make sure she's been on the biggest walk ever before I knew the postman was coming, and yeah, sometimes she'd be like half asleep, she'd be like opening her eyes, obviously she'd growl a bit, but she was just too tired to really care what was going on. Weren't you, Miss Maid? Obviously they are a barky breed, but with a bit of training, or a lot of training, then you can train them not to be. Mabel's come such a long way since when we moved in here, and she was a crazy dog, literally a crazy dog. She's here. She's here, she's here, she's here. Yes, anyway, I hope that helps. If you have any other questions or queries regarding this, then obviously just leave leave a comment in the description. We do talk about loads to do with this topic in my Dachshund community, which I've left the link in the description. Yeah, so if you have any more questions and you want to ask more Dachshund owners, then definitely check that out and come join the Silly Sausages family. It's called the Silly Sausages, named after this silly sausage right here. Isn't it, Mabes? She'll just do this and she'll just lick my hand. What are you doing? What are you doing? Anyway, thank you so much to everyone who's watched. Please don't forget to like and subscribe down below if you haven't already. And we shall see you all in the next video.